Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Manufacturer race at Sardegna in the Group 3 cars. So for this race, I'm starting from P5. You can see myself there in the background, quite a high rated lobby. I'm not sure, I think we might have had possibly one disconnection from this race. I can't exactly remember. It was a few rounds ago. As you can see there, starting from pole position, Jonas in the Jaguar. Very good lap for the Jaguar to get pole position in front of the Supra around this track. I think the Supra was possibly one of the best cars in terms of one lap pace and possibly qualifying as well. Lamborghini there in P4 with Kowski driving and myself in the Ford GT. The Ford GT was quite surprising. It was a very nicely balanced car for this track. Also, I didn't really practice this round at all. Literally did about 20 minutes on time trial. No real practice in terms of driving it with the fuel on board. We had one race before this, my first race practicing, and actually I think we qualified around P10 but had reasonably good race pace, not that far short of the lead battle, so was reasonably happy with how the car was driving. Very nicely balanced through this track. It kind of suits it. There was a couple of corners that the Ford GT did tend to struggle on a bit, on where the gearing was kind of holding it back from getting the speed, exiting the few corners. But overall, it was quite a decent car for this track. Going through the grid, you see there Porsche P13 all the way through the grid. Some of the slower cars in terms of the top end slower cars seem to struggle a bit in terms of outright pace due to this very much being one a slipstream track and a very high speed layout on the Sardegna A version. So it's not surprising to see some of the slower cars in terms of top speed cars at the back of the grid. You can see again there the Subaru struggling obviously with the straight line speed, and the Renault obviously right at the back with the lack of speed that car has. But you can see, I think we might have had a disconnection from this lobby. I'm not 100% sure. You can see there's only 19 drivers in this race. So starting from P5, main aim of this race was really to pretty much just keep this position. I didn't really expect to be this high up. I did quite a good qualifying lap. It was not far short of pole position, to be honest, so was reasonably happy with starting from P5. So now we're going to obviously keep that brake bias all the way to the front to protect the rear tyres. The Ford GT does tend to use up them rear tyres quite aggressively, so we're going to go all the way to the front with the bias and try and see if we can hold on to the slipstream and possibly make any moves whenever possibly as we go into the first corner. You can see it's going to get bunched up around here with the way the slipstream works, and I pretty much knew that because of the race before this. You could see it was very much a case of a slipstream race. It was pretty much impossible for the lead driver to break the toe from the car behind with the way the track is and the layout on this track. It makes it very difficult for cars to lose the slipstream from the cars behind. We've got TRR Manuel Rodri right behind us, a very fast driver in the Supra as well. The Supra obviously one of the strong cars around here, so I had to pay attention to that car behind. Although we had him behind us in the race before, I was able to pretty much defend. There was one corner where obviously the Ford does struggle on, which we'll point out in a moment, where it gets a little bit closer. However, in general, the top speed of the Ford was good enough to protect it from getting overtaken from the majority of cars, although there was the skyline behind Manuel Rodri there. You can see in P7, I think it's Doffra, in the not skyline, sorry, in the GTR, the Nissan GTR, which is one of the fastest cars on this game in Group 3 down the straight. It's got insane exit speeds and also acceleration all the way up to top speed as well. So as we come through to the braking zone now for this tight left hand corner, this is the corner where it was a bit of a struggle for the Ford to get the power down. You could see the way the gearing worked out, you were kind of stuck. It would have possibly been better for the second gear to be lower or first gear to be higher. Struggled to really get the exit speed. You can see I lose out a couple of attempts to Kowski in P4, and Manuel Rodri gets very close, but luckily we're not losing enough to lose that slipstream as we go back down into turn 1, and very close racing you can see going on between the top drivers. You can see how close this race is at the moment. Jomas still in P1, and just look at the train of cars. Obviously only one lap complete, but still no real field spread going on. It's all very compact, it's all very close, and that is very much the nature of this track. It does promote very close racing because of the way the corners are, the location of corners, then with long straights that bring everyone back together with the slipstream, and with the fact that a lot of power cars are in the front of this grid, it's not really you can see there's no real handling cars there. Obviously you've got the Lamborghini, however that struggles with tyre wear, but it's also a very fast car down the straight, so a lot of the power cars just bringing themselves back into the race pretty much every time we get to the straight. And you can see there Jomas with no slipstream obviously going to be struggling. However, the Jaguar is well known for its quite power. It's got quite good power down the straight. It's not the fastest car, but it's got enough power to defend in certain areas, although he will be very vulnerable going down the main straight. As we see now, just under half a second behind Calster in front of us in that Lamborghini. This section, the Ford was very nice for her actually. Just a little downshift to third gear, try and get as close to the apex as possible because you want to get on the power. I wasn't really risking too much through there in qualifying. I kind of backed out a bit too much from that corner. I think if I would have really gone for that corner and really attacked it, we could have been very close to pole position. However, I knew I was on a reasonably good lap, and that is why on my main qualifying lap I kind of just backed out a little bit just to ensure we were starting at the front end of the grid. As we now go back down the straight, and you can see that gap develops again from that tight left hand corner. The Ford just doesn't seem to be able to get the traction, or the gearing seems to be affecting the pull out of that corner. It was quite frustrating. Maybe with a bit more practice I could have worked out a different way to enter it and maybe go through, experiment with the gears a bit. But you can see now, look at the battle up ahead now as we go into this first sector again. Nearly 3 wide going into turn 3, I think it is now. As you see there, Calster had a little look, RC Mura having a look on Devil having a look on Jomas, now I'm having a look on Calster, and you've got Manuel Rodri right behind me. Insanely close racing going on so far, and so far no contact being made. It's all been very clean, respectful. No one's made any moves that would be classed as like irrational moves. It's all been fairly close, and people taking the time, realising it's still only lap 3. You see Jomas actually getting a little bit of a gap there when all that kicked off. You could see when people were having a look to make a move, there was a little bit of a gap developed for Jomas. So Jomas got a little bit of breathing space at the front of the grid there, but you can see under 1.5 seconds separating the top 5 so far in this race, and we're on lap 3. Insanely close racing going on. You can see in that top right hand corner on the replay camera just how close the racing is as we go through the sector. As Calster there having a little bit of a lag moment there, which was a little bit off-putting as we went through there, however seemed to settle down and sort itself out as we go again into that tricky left-hand corner, which we were trying to work it out whether I should early upshift or what. You can see trying to get on the power in first gear, but you can see the way it is, second, you have to pretty much upshift into second gear as you're coming out the corner, and you lose a bit of traction. Also on this time we actually got on the power a little bit early and didn't lose quite as much time as the laps before. But also you can see on this lap, RC Snake went for a massive dive, or missed his braking I believe, possibly missed his braking, and actually hit TR Manuel Rodri, but didn't give the place back, which was a little bit naughty in my opinion. I think after he got the position, I think he should have pretty much waited. I'm not sure if he had a penalty or not, but maybe he had a penalty, but I think he should have really waited for Manuel Rodri there, because he kind of knocked Manuel Rodri completely off the racing line and out of the battle. But you can see now Calster again getting very close. That Lamborghini very twitchy when you get when you try and like brake a little bit later and try and get on the power early. The Lamborghini can become very twitchy. However, he's doing a great job there driving on the pad, must be said, against RC Mura, who again is in the Supra. The Supra, one of the stronger cars around this track, and obviously Devil in front, actually taking the lead from Jomas. Now you can see that Jomas has actually lost that one position in the Jaguar, but I think Jomas still will be quite happy in P2 at the moment in this race, with myself there behind Calster again into the braking zone. I was quite strong in the braking on this area of the track. I felt very confident, and actually the gearing helped out there because I could get in second gear a little bit earlier and get reasonably good traction coming out that corner. However, now we've got Dofra behind us in that Nissan GTR, which, like I say, is an extremely fast car, and briefly went up to 4th position there where someone had a bit of a connection issue. I think it was Jomas. You can see he's on one bar there, nearly disconnected from the race. I mean, that was insanely close. Luckily for Jomas, I think his connection came back just in time. You see there, back onto the 4 bars and back into P2, but he's actually in P3 now. It looks like RC Mura's actually got past him with that lag disconnection or whatever he had there. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but briefly went up to P4 but back down to P5 as we go over the line to start lap 5. So over halfway through this race now, and again the gap is under 1.4 seconds between the top 5 drivers, with Dofra also closing in, so 2 seconds separating the top 5 in this race. You can see on that top right hand corner on the replay camera just how close this racing is. A bit of a gap there to the GTR behind us, but then these 5 cars, the 4 cars in front of me, battling away, looking to try and make a move, is trying to find the space. You can see again, we're going to look at the replay camera now and look how amazing this looks with how close this racing is on lap 5 of this 8-lap race. And I really wish these races would be a little bit longer, because this race could have been really entertaining with it being maybe 14 laps or even more. and with a pit stop involved, because it could have really threw up some strategy with people getting in front and then having worn tyres, or going for the longer stint and then having fresher tyres at the end. It could have been really interesting, and I think I'd love to see the strategy element coming back into GT Sport with longer races. I think these shorter races are a little bit trained, like you can see it in this race. It's amazing to be in, it's great when you're racing in these races, but you can see the train effect that's going on because it's such a short race. The new Slipstream is really not helping out the racing, I don't believe, as we run a little bit wide there, but just about managed to hang on and only get two tyres with that dirty, when you get the dirt on the tyres, only 2 tyres affected, so don't really lose out on traction. It's when you get all 4 tyres over the track and onto the dirt that you really suffer with loss of traction. But yeah, I think we do need to, I think Polyphony need to increase these race distances. This race needed to be minimum 4 laps longer, in my opinion, maybe 5 or 6 laps longer, with a pit stop and added strategy element into the race. I think it would have worked. I think it could have been really entertaining with how close this race clearly is, with different people pitting at different stages. It could have really opened it up to some overtaking and more variation, different grip levels when people pit on different laps. But will we get to that stage with FIA? I don't know. We used to be at the longer racing, but they've gradually got shorter since they started doing these official events, and we're now on very, very short races, only 8 laps in this race. But again, Callister having a look at Jomas. Jomas seemed to be starting to struggle a little bit with tyre wear, although it wasn't terrible. He was just starting to lose a bit of traction, but luckily for him, he's at the moment staying in that slipstream to RC Mura, which is giving him the tow all the way down the straights, which is helping him defend from Callister, because I think without that tow, Callister might have been able to go for a dive somewhere. You can see again, having a little look up the inside, he thought of it there, but just thought better of it, getting back into the normal racing line. As again, through that corner, trying to get on the pound nice and early in this Ford. Again, the gearing suits the Ford through that corner on the exit, able to get on the power even with the dirty air, and then going through this really fast flowing section, trying not to run too far wide on this left hand corner. So easy to do. There's Jomas runs a little bit wide. Actually, I think he just about saved all 4 wheels from going off and kept the tyres just about clean on the left hand side. And again, he's going to have to defend now as Callister right behind him. And again, we don't get an amazing exit from that corner. You can see how I just lose that tiny bit of traction because of the gearing. I did try it in second gear, first gear I was messing around, different points of changing gear, but it's just the way the gearing was. But this time we don't lose quite as much time as we go over the line, starting lap 7, just 2 laps to go, and much closer in the braking zone into 10-1, but far too far back really to make a move from Callister there. I couldn't really throw it up the inside, and I think Callister also just a little bit too far back from that Jaguar, as he's just still in the slipstream range from RC Mura in that Super, as we now starting the penultimate lap, going through this twisty section. This is where I think the Jaguar was starting to suffer a bit, starting to pick up a bit of understeer as we go through there, but also the Lamborghini and the Ford that I'm in, we're probably starting to suffer with the rear tyre wear. This is where we can't get the traction down as easily as the FR car. So different type of areas on the track where different cars have their strengths now as we come to the end of this race. Devil pretty much gone now. He's got I think he's actually managed to break the slipstream to RC Mura in that Toyota. I think Jomas just about managed to hold off RC Mura for long enough for Devil to get out slipstream. But we have a little look up the inside there. I think Callister wasn't really looking to make a move on Jomas there. I think what Callister was doing was, it was kind of one of them defensive overtake looks where you're making sure that the car behind cannot go for the move, but you're just putting enough pressure on P3 also, just to make him let him know that you're there in case he makes a mistake or something. As we now go through this section again, trying not to run too far wide there. The front tyres are starting to wear a little bit. That right front is starting to look a little bit worn, so we're going to start picking up some understeer now on this final lap. And again, we go into second gear much earlier this time and get much better drive from the corner because of the rear tyres going a little bit loose. The car rotated and actually enabled me to get on the power in second gear much earlier. So now maybe the brake bias could have came into play there by maybe going a little bit more forward, rearwards with the brake bias. However, we would have been picking up more rear tyre wear, which would have affected our traction. And again, you can see getting in the slipstream down the straight, braking just short of the 100. A little tap to Callister there, wasn't deliberate. We just picked up a massive slipstream and wasn't really going for an overtake. We were trying to avoid him if anything, but didn't really affect anything. Actually, I don't think Callister lost any time as he's still able to have a little look up on the inside there to Jomas, with the GTR right behind me also now. So this is going to be hard to try and defend from that and make a move. You can see I'm getting very close to that Lamborghini now that Lamborghini is starting to struggle with the tyres as we go through these final corners now. Again, trying to stay as close as possible through here and then get the power down. You can see in that dirty air, the rear stepping out, managing to hold on to the car as we work our way down the straight. You can see how close it still is. Devil still only a few seconds in the lead, just over 2 seconds, but P2 is only a matter of a second up the track really as we go into the braking zone for this very tricky corner. Again, you've got to be careful not to put the power on too early, but again the Ford seemed fairly confident through that corner. Did get a little bit loose there as we're now starting to struggle with that rear right hand tyre, and again going through this section starting to pick up that dirty air. This is where the dirty air is going to affect you when the tyres are wearing out. Going through this left hand corner, didn't get it to bite in, got a massive amount of understeer and actually ran off all 4 wheels off the track, and Dofra takes advantage of that in the Nissan. Not much I can do there. Tyres have got dirt all over them now, and you see when we put the power down, there's just no grip from them tyres. And also, I wasn't paying attention to the fuel during this race. You can see 1% left. Realised I'd have to short shift at this point, early up into 5th, then into 6th gear. I think we possibly could have survived with the slipstream in front of us if I would have realised that, if I wouldn't have made that mistake, as we actually ran out just before the line, I think there. But we might have made it through into 5th place. I think I was just too engrossed in the racing to really be looking at the fuel, and we did a bit too much fuel burning at the start. I knew we could do a little bit, but I think I did it for a little bit too long when we were going through the grid order. We should have really stopped fuel burning a little bit sooner. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that race. I thoroughly enjoyed being in that race. Just wish it would have been a little bit longer, and I'll be back with more videos soon anyway. So if you haven't already subscribed, please make sure you hit that subscription button and click the notification button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks again for watching, everyone.